large people to, there's these wide straps and you hook them up and you lift them. They're called lift straps. So we took one of those and I wrapped it around my waist. And I told my dad, I said, now you hold the back of this strap. He's in a wheelchair. I'm going to put Felicia in my mama's lap in a wheelchair. And here we go in Houston. Now, mind you, I couldn't even spell Houston back then. And I'm trying to go up this incline, pushing my mom. My daughter's holding both poles, my mom's pole and her pole. And I've got that strap on my hip. And Daddy's trying to help me. I wished I'd have had a picture of that. Because I said right then, when I made it to the top of that hill that seemed like it was 10 miles long and it was probably only a block, you know. But I said at that moment, you know, the Lord put me here, but he didn't put me here for punishment. He put me here because he knew without a shadow of a doubt that I could withstand any storm. And that was, I think, was the turning point when I looked up, instead of saying why, I looked up and I said, thank you. Because what it was is he was strengthening me, giving me strength and endurance because he could see what I would be faced with on down the road.
This profound moment that you had, you realized the strength that you had. And you realized that God was giving you strength to handle any situation in your life.
Well, I met Buddy, and from day one, I knew that all the bad, using a very simple word, came to fruition because there was I met my journey. I met my best friend. I met the love of my life. I knew when I met this man, he was different. You know, that was my reward. But in order to keep that reward, I needed to cherish it and appreciate it and respect it because I had never opened my heart to anyone. When we met, we went for coffee 4 or 5 days in a row. And it was like he had an application. And so it was like we were back and forth and we were like asking questions, kind of like an application, but not really. And it was like, this can't be real. Well, I'm here today to say it was real. So we married 2001. And 8 months later, I fell 21 feet. I was working. I worked in a warehouse. I drove a forklift, and I loaded 18-wheelers. We made cables for General Motors, the cables that went in the doors. And I broke my back in two places. I had 12 surgeries. 4 of them was on my knees. I broke multiple bones. And I had to learn to walk again. So, there again, I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because the day that I found out that my journey had just really begun, not in 94, but on this day, is when Buddy was sleeping, and I woke up, and that was the major surgery, and I needed to use the restroom, which I was probably out of it. And I go to get out of the bed. Of course, I'm hooked to everything, but I don't know this. And I fall on that concrete floor. And Buddy jumped up screaming, and blood's everywhere. So he's calling for help. They were supposed to tell me that I may never walk again. So when they come in, the doctor came in, he leaned against the wall. He said, I can't guarantee you'll ever walk. I said, yes, I can. I'm just that hard-headed. I am my daddy's child, you know. My mother was very mild, just a very soft person. My dad was kind of rough around the edges. And I think I grabbed my strength more from him. And I knew that my daughter had a ring ding coming in 2004. And I said, I'm going to be there. I'm going to walk in that auditorium. That was what drove me. So I was in physical therapy every day. Buddy's mom would drive me because he had to work. And the physical therapist tied me like a dog leash. But he has 2 strings. So if I wobbled, he'd pull me back. If I wobbled, and he worked with me for 18 months. And I'll tell you what, I walked with my walker into that auditorium. Yeah, I had to sit in a chair on the bottom, but I watched my daughter receive that graduation ring. And a year later, I walked without a walker, and I watched my daughter graduate high school, and I ended up with a drop foot. That was a pivoting moment. So we move forward. Life is good. I struggle. And in 2008, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Here we go again. You know, there's another battle. That's okay. I got this. Yeah. And losing the hair, that was tough. I love my hair. Yeah. Went through treatment, and I received my certificate in 2019. I'm 10 years in remission. But through that, I started becoming ill. Couldn't put your finger on it. Went through multiple tests. Maybe it was the chemo tablets. Maybe it was the this. You know, no one could put their finger on what happened. And we're in 21, so in 2018, my doctor said, look, I need to run some tests. Something's not right, which in the meantime, I was diagnosed with lupus. But they knew that this couldn't just be what it is. And we ran some tests, and they sent my tests to Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, West Virginia, to different labs, genetic testing. And I was just dealt a bad hand of cards, but I have a terminal illness, and it's called protein M deficiency. If I'd have had the protein N, which was up, and I have the down one, then I could have been given a port and received my proteins. But in this case, the Lord is my medicine, and the sunshine is my fuel. So every day I wake up before the sun rises, and I do that because I want to know that I got to see the sun rise, and I watched the sun set. And that was another day he gave me to make it right. And that's the way I view it. I live each day to make it right. Not that I'm wrong, but I live it to make it right. Maybe not right for me, but make it right for everyone else. And that was hard. When I left there that day, Buddy and I we didn't know what to say. You know, well, we can try this treatment, we can try this. And it took me a few days. You know, I went through the anger, the emotions, you know, all of that. And I finally said, you know, I'm going to make that call. And I told her I don't want treatment. Give me just what I've been taking, and I take certain injections once a month. I will take that, and I'm just going to live my life. And here we are today, and Lippy is living her life. But I live it putting a smile on somebody's face. I live it with cooking a meal and seeing someone fill their belly. I live my life being brutally honest. And that's who Lippy is today.
You bring that out in your YouTube channel and things like that. You love gardening, but you know you are dealing with disability. So you can't garden to the fullest like someone who can get out and do it all. But you've turned container gardening and raised beds and small garden spaces into productive spaces. And this year you didn't get to do the garden you wanted, but your pots just flourished and gave you what you planted in them, you harvested out of them. So it shows that you know how to garden.
That's right.
If you had the strength, you could do the acres, because you've owned the acres before. But you also love being a part of somebody. You and Buddy make a good team. And so on Gemini Homestead, when you do your lives and stuff, it's fun to just watch you two interact between each other, things like that. That's what makes you and Buddy a team, in my opinion. And so also you have the seasonings, Mrs. Lippy's Bayou Blends that you came out with this past year. And that wasn't by accident. You ended up with those seasonings. A lot of YouTubers come up with something that they discovered on their own, something they like, and they blend it and they put that out there. Your blends are amazing because I thought Cajun blends were going to be really hot. Now some of them can be a touch hot, but they're not overpowering hot. And I guess overall, the one I use the most is the Porkin' Good. I really thought I would use the Cluckin' Good for chicken. And I do use it on some stuff, but I use the Porkin' Good more than anything else. Last night I made chicken that I took in. So Porkin' Good's not for just pork anymore. It's for everything. I took chicken and breaded it in corn flour and mixed in the Porkin' Good and breaded it and baked it in the oven. And it was a lot like shake and bake. To me, I don't know why it has that kind of shake and bake taste to it. And so I've coated pork, I've coated beef, and I've coated chicken with the Porkin' Good, and I really love the taste in all of it. I've used it on French fries, vegetables that I bake in the oven, but the swamp mix is like my next to the favorite. Now I've done every kind of vegetable in swamp mix. So these are 3, you've got more than this, but she's got the swamp mix, the Porkin' Good, and the Cluckin' Good, as in chicken. But they don't have to be used just on pork or just on chicken. So how did you come up with these things?
My dad. My dad would shake, and he knew exactly how much. And I watched him. He used his own seasoning blends. And it was in 2007 or 8. And my daughter was going to help me. She said, okay, I'm going to draw you your label. I said, I'm ready to do it. It took me many years because there was something I was missing. When I finally mastered these seasonings, these blends, I said, okay, I want to send them to production. You know, I don't know. Well, they never went to production because I couldn't afford it. You're talking a few thousands of dollars. So I had a little briefcase. And in January of this past year, I was talked to you too. And I said, you know, Lord, let's scale it down. Instead of somebody else doing it, what if it's something I could package? So I called my daughter. I said, I'm ready to do it again. Now, Mother, I said, no, I'm going to package it. And I'm going to use Mylar bags, and I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use that. She said, so what you're saying is you need me to get you some labels. Yes, darling. So my daughter has designed every label, the new 3 seasoning blends that we're hoping to launch. She's done all of that. And I owe this to my dad. If he would have pushed me off to the side, go play with your friends or go do this, I wouldn't have these blends out. But instead, my daddy saw that this was interesting to me. See, because my dream was to go to culinary arts. But that also meant leaving my parents. So guess what? I didn't leave my parents. So these blends may have my name on them, but they're my daddy through and through.
And you told me that you watched him mix these things. And to me, that's amazing because when I was growing up, my mom did most of the cooking. And I hardly ever went in the kitchen. I'd rather have a book reading, and I'd be in my bedroom, and she just called me to help out, set the table. And, you know, we ate, and then we had to wash dishes. There was 3 of us girls. So we had to take turns washing dishes and stuff like that. But I didn't care about cooking. And in the summertime, when we weren't in school, she would say, Wanda, because I was the oldest, she'd say, go in there and fix us something for lunch. And so she would send me in the house while they were shelling peas and beans, because Mom and Granny usually sat outside, and they had these big pots, and they would be shelling, and we would pick several 5-gallon buckets, and they would shell all day. You didn't have shellers and stuff. We were the shellers, and she would make us sit there. Even my sisters, even though they were younger than me, they sat there and shelled. We all shelled, and when it got 11 o'clock, she's like, go in and make us something to eat. Well, the only thing I knew how to do was make macaroni and cheese and sandwiches. And so 90% of the time when I went in, it was macaroni and cheese and a sandwich. That's what we got for lunch. And she knew that if we had tomatoes, we had a tomato sandwich. That was it. In the summertime, we sat there, tomato sandwich and macaroni and cheese. And when I married, oh my goodness, the guy said, the only thing, we'd been married about a month. And he said, the only thing she knows how to cook is spaghetti, macaroni and cheese, peas, beans, and potatoes. And that was it. I'd never fried a chicken. I'd never fried a chicken at all. I remember my first time frying chicken, I couldn't get it done. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was afraid I was going to overdo the frying part because I thought it was too hot. And so I keep it turned down, and chicken just sit there and absorb all that grease and stuff, and it was horrible. I mean, and I didn't cut a chicken up until I was probably 30 before I ever cut one up. I bought them always cut up. I wasn't fixing to cut a chicken up.
That's like my daughter, Mother, how I cut this chicken, because it don't look like your chicken. I said, well, tell you what, I'll teach you. Because let me tell you, when she got through chopping that chicken, I wasn't sure if it was a chicken, a hog. I really didn't know what she had. But you had touched on, I knew about gardening. My ex-husband actually had a dairy farm. It was over 300 head of milk cows. We had the horses, the pigs, the goats. And that's where my major big-scale gardening really was learned from. I learned from my dad, but that's if Dad took me to the farm. I was always with Mom. And it might have been Daddy didn't want me getting hurt with the tiller, whatever. But very seldom would he let me go to the farm. He would always bring it home. And then I could, help with it. But to actually get my hands on it was with my ex-husband. And we had a various property to cut hay on. I was in charge of raking hay. He would bale hay. But my true gardening experience came from the dairy farm. And then we had rodeo. And my daughter was probably, to me, one of the best barrel racers there was. I rode horses. So I look at my past and my ex-husband there again as another tool to that toolbox. Even though that chapter ended, it was what I learned that I have no regrets, if that makes any sense.
I get what you're saying, because I learned so much in my first marriage. There were the things that you don't want to talk about, but in my first marriage, I had 5 kids, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was a homeschool mom. Back in the day when nobody homeschooled, I homeschooled 5 kids. I had 3 of those kids I had home births, back when nobody had home births. And we had a garden. And I was not the one that done the plowing, but I helped with the planting, the weeding, all that stuff, a lot of the picking, plus the putting the harvest up. Back then we put everything in the freezer because we had a freezer. You done it and you froze it. Hardly ever did I can very much other than green beans. And so when 2000 hit, it was like, oh my goodness, the end of the world's coming. We got to prepare. And so I started canning everything. I would go buy jars, and I would can peas, and I would can hominy, and I would can corn. I just canned all kinds of stuff, and I had all stuff in jars everywhere. And I loved canning, and it made life easy. But nobody had been canning for several years. My mom canned only, everything went in the freezer with my mom. She hardly ever canned anything other than green beans and jellies. So I just kind of followed in her footsteps. when I met Danny, I was used to throwing everything in the freezer. Now, I had canned in 2000 and 2001 because I thought the world was going to end, and it didn't. But then I kind of quit. You know, we didn't can no more, and life took different stages. And in my first marriage, I learned carpentry work. My husband was a carpenter, and I was always either going to the job to take something, or if he needed an extra hand, I would leave the kids with my mother-in-law and go help him. And so I picked up a lot of carpenter skills from him because we built 2 of our own houses. And I was the extra help with building those houses. And so when I went to work after I was separated, I went to work in a place that owned a construction company and a lot of rentals. And I was over the rentals, overseeing the repair work and all that kind of stuff. So there my carpentry skills came in handy because I knew what people needed and when they needed it, so I could send it out to them. And then when I divorced and Danny and I married, it just left me in a way that I already knew the basic gardening, and I knew some carpentry skills, I guess. But when Danny started the project, he was amazed. I already knew what he was going to be doing. I could help him with it. Now, I can't picture the end result like he can. He has to get to the end before I see how it's supposed to look. Even with the cabin, I know he's got it in his head. It's not in my head till we get there. And then he was canning. He was canning everything. And I'm like, I've canned, but not a lot. So he helped can to start with. He was in here every time we canned. He was here for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden he decided, okay, you got this now. I'm out the door and I'll do man things, you know. I think in your life, I'm like you. Past lives have helped us. And I tell people in a previous life lots of times, and they laugh at me, but I do look at it like it was a previous life. Because the life I have now is so different from what I've ever lived before. Everything seems different, you know, when you move from one thing to another. And since Danny and I married, I'm like you. I feel like life has taken a different change, and it makes me feel good because he was my savior, like Buddy was yours. It was a guy that I was not used to, somebody that respected a woman and showed them a nice life and not put them down. It was a person that you can love and they love you back. And that was amazing. And that's what I see with you and Buddy, because you've been here and I've seen you 2 together a lot, even in person. Yes. So that's what I see in your relationship.
You know, and I listen to so many people. And I never really paid attention until the last couple of years. And I hear people say, well, I regret. Or I wished I wouldn't have done that. And I'm going to do everything I can every time I hear someone personally say that to me. And stop them. Because I feel living life should have no regret. You should never say, I wished I wouldn't have done it. Because to me, a lesson is something that you don't repeat twice. So living life is a lesson. Now, if you repeat these mistakes, well, you got issues. But I don't like the word regret. Because I personally, did I make mistakes? Yes. Do I regret them? No. Because that is who I am today. And I don't know, I'm just one of them people where I don't lay my head down and say, well, Lord, I wished I wouldn't have done that. No, I say, you see how stupid I was? I am so glad that I learned my lesson. And that's what I want to bring to YouTube. Not so much of, because I've been very reserved with our gardening. I mean, we do love to fish. There's a lot of aspects to our life that Buddy and I share because every day we want to share it. But I want to bring YouTube some education, whether that be in cooking or if I know something about gardening that somebody else doesn't know. Buddy's a very talented man. I mean, he He rebuilt this whole home we're in. We've been blessed to have a lot of talent, and that came with learning. It wasn't just God's gift to us. We had to learn this. But I also want to bring a different window for people to look through. I want people to see themselves in a different way. And I say this because of the emails that I get. If only I could be like you, Miss Lippy, or if only, I love how you make me laugh. That is actually my goal. It's just for someone, whether it be 5 minutes or 25 minutes if I get long-winded, when they click off of that video, they got true content, because I'm not a creator. I don't create something. I turn it on. What you see is me, the good and bad and ugly. But I know when they turn it off that I hope, if nothing else, there was a small little part that had a tool in there for them to use, however that may be, spiritual, emotional, however. I really, really strive to help someone, even though that may not be my intention on camera, but I do my best to make sure there is a tool that's going to help somebody out there, whatever that may be. But loving life, I'm about loving life. I'm not about regretting life. And that pretty well sums up who Lippy is.
I've known you for a while. You don't let a whole lot get you down.
4 years.
You may get down on something. Something might pull you at your strings, but then you fight it back with full force. You had COVID last year, and you got very, very sick. And that was probably one of the scariest couple of weeks for me. And I know Buddy was worse than I was. And I was messaging Buddy. I was messaging you. I wanted you to at least acknowledge you got the message. I told you at least acknowledge it. I wanted your brain to work. I didn't want you to just lay down and sleep all the time. And I kept saying, okay, Lippy, answer me. And Buddy would take the phone to you. Lippy, you got to talk to Wanda. You got to. And we both felt like you had to wake up some, show that you were functioning here. Buddy was your lifeline there, because otherwise you would have ended up in the hospital. So we were very thankful that you had the knowledge, especially because you do a lot of your own medicines, because you don't want traditional medicine. And that's something I admire too, because I don't like taking medicine. I don't take any kind of medication whatsoever. And we have a stash of medicine. And I have a stash of my oils and things that if we need them, over-the-counter stuff, if we need them, they're here. We know when to go to the hospital. We know when to go to the doctor. If you have something that you can't handle yourself, hey, there's a doctor out there. Too many people run to the doctor for little things, which overcrowds the system. And then the people that need it for big things can't get in. And so I admire that, because you have your own way of keeping yourself going. You know when you need something or don't need anything. You pay attention to your body. And you have everything at your disposal that you need. And I think that's admirable, because you are, to me, you are a prepper in so many ways, because of not only food-wise, you know to have your meds handy for an extended period of time. Because last year, if you hadn't had those meds on hand, you would have been in a doctor's office.
And because two of the meds that they was treating it with, they pulled. But that's what I'm treated with for my, I hate to label it, for my illness. I just hate to give it a name. Actually, I call it something else, but I won't say that on this. But if it wouldn't have been, that's what's keeping me going. There's 2 medications that they was treating that with last year that I actually keeps me alive today, if that makes sense. It was last year, 2020, it changed Buddy and I. We were always preppers, if you will, hardcore. A lot of people, well, they're going to know it now. That's just how we've always lived our life since we've been together. We always wanted to be prepared for the whatever if ever, but we wanted enough that I could take care of our family. It was just not just about him and I. There is extensions to us, and they matter just as much as we matter. They may not know they're going to need us, but we wanted to be prepared. But last year, I took ill. That was in March. April 24th, a storm came through, and a lot of people know this, and took half the house, 40 feet of one side of our home. And 2 weeks to the date, Buddy lost his job of over 20 years. So in a less than 12-week period, our life had significant hard impacts. We got weak on the knees, but that's because we chose to get on those knees. It wasn't just by shock. We chose to get on those knees because we knew it was going to take more than him and I, you know. And here we are. We are stronger from that, but the memories are still raw.
We're going to end it here with Miss Lippy from Gemini Homestead, but Miss Lippy's not through yet. You're going to be on YouTube. You are in the process of revamping Gemini Homestead. You're also in the process of getting all your seasonings ready to be just out there for people to try.
I won't be doing teas. Once the teas are gone, but I am doing my lipstick. I'm doing my salves. I'm bringing everything to the table that I have been doing, but I've just never shared it. I think it's not fair to me to keep all of this. I think what I need to do, if I'm going to share Miss Lippy, this is what I'm about. This is who I am, and I'm going to offer it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to offer it. A lot of my followers and subscribers, I am doing all of that, but I'm also working on a journey to better health. You know, in the last few weeks, I've had some setbacks with my illness. And right now, I'm concentrating on getting healthier. And I have to, because in order for me to continue this journey that I'm on, it has to start with my health first. And so I did put everything on the back seat because daily activities, just like washing dishes or walking, I've had some setbacks. I'm doing better. Each day is better. But when I do bring it back, I'm coming full force, new seasoning, cookbook is in the works. I'm coming fully charged.
So in the future, they can be looking for Miss Lippy's Bayou Blends. You're also doing the cookbook.
Yes.
I think are you planning on doing like the teas?
I won't be doing teas. Once the teas are gone, but I am doing my lipstick. I'm doing my salves. But I am doing my lipstick. I'm doing my salves. I'm bringing everything to the table that I have been doing, but I've just never shared it. I think it's not fair to me to keep all of this. I think what I need to do, if I'm going to share Miss Lippy, this is what I'm about. This is who I am, and I'm going to offer it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to offer it.
And it's called a Lippy stick, right?
Yep. So if you have gator lips, you need some Lippy stick.
So guys, we want to thank Miss Lippy from Gemini Homestead for being with us today. It's been amazing. We've had a lot of fun, and she and I probably will do it again because we got stories. And
Yes.
She's got lots of stories, and probably one of the funniest stories, I have to just mention it because I'm going to try and get the link and put it in the description below. I believe she told it on live, but she told it to me personally. And I have never laughed so hard in my life, was the squirrel. And the slinky. The slinky and the squirrel. So I guess you need to find that live and title it The Slinky and the Squirrel so that I can find it and put it in the description, because y'all, if y'all don't do nothing else but listen to the Slinky and the Squirrel, it is worth it. That is the funniest story ever. Yeah, all her stories are true. She don't know nothing to make up now. Lippy don't have to make nothing up, do you?
Oh no.
And we didn't even get to why you're called Lippy. I guess that. Y'all gonna have to wait till the next time. All I can tell you is we didn't even get to why she's not called Denise, as her mama called her. Donnie. But she is Miss Lippy now to everybody. And we'll get to that in a future. She's told people on her live stream about why you're called Miss Lippy. But we'll get to that next time. How's that sound? Part 2. Guys, I don't know if y'all understand it. We have had so much fun before this live stream started, because I am Lippy made over when it comes to computers. She has issues with computers. I have issues with computers. And we both just went crazy for about 35 minutes before and did nothing but laugh trying to get started. So, so we're going to try part 2, and maybe we'll have this figured out by then. Guys, thank you, Lippy.
You got me laughing again.
If we had poor eyes at the beginning, it was because we were laughing too hard. So thank you for stopping by, Lippy. Guys, we'll talk to you later. Thank you from Crazy Days.